Today's episode of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast is brought to you by Baylor Scott & White Sports Performance Center, athletes made here. The Sports Performance Center was developed with one goal in mind: to maximize human performance through movement and recovery. Their team of expert performance sports coaches and trainers will guide you to achieve your performance goals. That's the Baylor Scott & White Sports Performance Center, located at the Star in Frisco. This episode is also brought to you by Allen Dental Studio. Located off Bethany Drive in Allen, their office was designed with you, the patient, in mind, which means an excellent and enjoyable experience. From cosmetics to implants, you deserve a perfect smile, and Allen Dental Studio can make that happen. Also, don't want to leave out another longtime friend of the podcast, Texan Senior Residential Care Homes. With locations in Carrollton and Dallas, Texan Senior Residential Care Homes offers an affordable, high-quality alternative to senior living. Call now at 469-400-7650. That's Texan, spelled T-E-X-S-E-N, Texan Senior Residential Care Homes.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast. Another two-man show on a Thursday around here with Bryan Murphy, Taylor Raglin. Another Game of the Week podcast and another blowout, man. I think potentially the most votes we've ever gotten for a game. I don't know for sure. I haven't gone back, all the way through the archives.
What was the final count?
Man, I think
1140 something.
1150. I think it was 1150 votes for the Game of the Week, decided on by you, the reader. Frisco and Frisco Reedy. Yeah, the Frisco ISD faithful showed out. I guess on both sides. Since it's an inter-city matchup.
Now I was trying to figure out, and I'm going to get to the bottom of it, but who was the side, which school, had led the charge? Who had the most votes?
Man, based on our projections, I don't know. We'll just have to see. We'll have to see which school we may have fired up.
A lot of the Raccoons people were replying to me on Twitter and stuff, and they're those high school Barstool accounts.
Those are huge. I don't remember those even. I mean, Barstool's been around for a while, but I don't remember those even last year being as big as they are this year.
No, they started popping up within the last calendar year.
Yeah, it seems like everybody and their mom's got a Barstool account now for their school. But
we'll start seeing middle schools with Barstool accounts here soon.
Anyway, we've got plenty of games to get to in the back half, but let's start with the big winner with the Frisco Reedy showdown, Friday 7 p.m. at the Star. Man, it's a much more interesting game, I think, than we may have projected coming into the season. I think everybody was really high on Frisco Reedy after that incredible season they had last year. Frisco projected to be good, certainly not, supposed to be bad, supposed to be a postseason team.
But Frisco team that you did not have in the playoffs.
I did not, but a spoiler for a podcast that's already come out, I guess. So if you've watched our kind of reconsideration podcast of our 5A projections, I bumped the Raccoons all the way up to first in District 7 5A Division 2. I think they've earned it. But at the same time, who knows? Frisco Reedy's still winning football games, maybe not in the fashion that they did
barely
last season, certainly. But at the same time, this could end up being kind of a de facto district championship game. So, I guess Mr. Frisco ISD over here, what's kind of your read on the matchup, and what do you think might be the key for either the Lions to kind of continue their winning ways and maybe have a good win, or for Frisco to kind of topple Reedy and hand them a district loss?
It's concerning the way Reedy has won their first two district games. And I kind of talked a little bit about that on the podcast on Monday. You're not supposed to barely beat Lake Dallas without their stud athlete at quarterback, and then you go to Denison. Yeah, that's a tough place to play. Yep. On the road, Denison
and a good Denison team
could be a playoff team there as well. But you barely hang on to win that game too. Reedy, they don't really have an identity right now. The first couple games, albeit one of them was against the Colony. They didn't. They were going through quarterbacks, and Jalen Kitna hasn't been super explosive or super special. He hasn't had that game where a potential future Division I quarterback you'd think would have with the 3-4 touchdowns, 300 yards that a lot of these other quarterbacks are having. A lot that Josh Foskey had last year on that spectacular Reedy team. They've going into the year, Jacob Smith was going to be the running back, but as of late, it's been Karsten Farragut, getting a lot of the carries. He had 19 carries last week against Denton. He had 176 yards.
Yeah.
And I saw him quite a bit against the Colony. Not many players were doing much against the Colony. Granted, it is the Colony, but this team still has Will Harbour. If they can find ways, which they have done the last 2.5 years, to get him the ball. And, obviously his main position is linebacker, and he kicks field goals. But if you can find a way to keep utilizing him on offense, he scored a pair of touchdowns last week against Denton. In that Wildcat formation. If they can get him going, their best bet really to beat Frisco is to get in a shootout with them.
Yeah.
And because Frisco is just, they've been putting points on the board against everyone. They scored 76 last week against Lebanon Trail. They scored 48 against Melissa. Man, I saw them in their season opener against Woodrow Wilson. They put up a ton of points. They are loaded offensively, man. Like, skill position wise only, depth. I think they have the most depth at that position in all of Frisco, and that includes Lone Star. I'm not saying they're better than Lone Star,
right.
But if you're just talking about receivers and running backs and who they have in that personnel, they are so good.
And they're throwing the football.
They are throwing it's like
throwing the football.
How do you stop that? When you're running that wing team, you don't know who's going to run the ball. Is it going to be Blake May? Is it going to be Bryson Clemens? Chase Lowry? Is Kari Green the quarterback? Is he going to run with it, or is he going to? You stack the box, you get one-on-one coverage on the outside, and Kari Green, they have a competent thrower, a guy that can throw consistently for 100, 200 yards a game for the first time in nearly a decade. That's just so tough to beat. And I don't know if Reedy has those guys. Last year they had those guys, obviously, but I don't know if they have the personnel this year to slow that down and keep Frisco, underneath, below 40 points.
I think that's the important thing. The key word is competent. That's literally all you need for a team like Frisco. Like you mentioned with the wing tee, that's your identity. You're going to run the football, but they haven't even had a quarterback that, no disrespect to past quarterbacks, they've run the system perfectly fine.
They just didn't throw the ball.
But they weren't even competent and a threat to really throw the football consistently, and that's really all you need. You mentioned with Green, all you have to do is just have the threat of being able to throw the football. Just have the threat of being able to take a shot every once in a while. And it's already tough to play against the wing tee. It's already tough to defend that kind of an offense, especially when it's so entrenched at Frisco. They run it so well. They have guys back running it that have done it for several years now, which is always very important. Running an offense like that, all you need is kind of the specter of we can throw the football now. Maybe you still don't 25 times a game. That's still probably not Frisco's identity, but the threat of it is there, and you have to respect it, and that hasn't been the case in years past.
Yeah, and it helps when you have a guy like Chase Lowry, who 2 weeks ago in a 5-point win over Braswell, he had 6 catches for 199 yards and 3 touchdowns. Yeah. And then last week he had 162 yards and 2 more touchdown catches. When have you ever seen that, at least in our time covering this area of high school football, a guy from Frisco putting in remotely those type of numbers.
Right.
Even a couple years ago when this team was the year before their 0-10 team, when they were in that district with Lone Star and the rest of Frisco, that was, if they threw the ball 3 times in a game, it was like, whoa, they're throwing the ball. This is crazy. Now they're throwing it, 6, 10, upwards of 12 times a game now. Yeah. Which is still not a lot, but
it's a lot for them.
You're throwing it for over 200 yards.
Yep. And it makes it exist, like I said. It makes it exist. I think this game is going to hinge on, you mentioned Frisco Reedy, man. They really don't feel like they have an identity. And I'm not saying you can't find it in 1 week. Who knows? But it's going to depend on which Reedy team I think shows up. Is the team that, especially with Lake Dallas has lost to Princeton, that 6-point win or whatever it was over Lake Dallas looks really bad. Yeah. But then that win over Denton, like you said, on the road, that's a good Denton program with Jadarian Price back. I don't know if he was 100%, probably not, but he played in the game. That's a really young, fast, talented Denton team. That's a good win. And for a team, I think expectations have to be recalibrated for Reedy, obviously. They're not going to go unbeaten in district play. I think we've all been on record saying they'll drop one somewhere just because they've come back to the pack. So if you come back to the pack, you recalibrate expectations. That's a good solid win. They're not awful. They're not an awful football team. They just look awful. Team. They look awful compared to
last year.
What they were.
Exactly.
I think everybody's vision of Reedy is colored by the fact of how dominant they were last season. So, if the Reedy team that shows up last week and beat Denton on the road and a good 7-5 A D2 game between maybe postseason teams, then there's no saying that they can't beat Frisco. I mean, obviously, nobody wants to. I don't think either one of us sitting here and saying that can't happen. It's still a proud program, like you mentioned. Will Harbour is still a freak athlete. They still have playmakers.
Will Harbour should still be, the lead MVP candidate of this district.
Yeah. So,
and like you said, when you're coming off a 13 in 1 year, 4 rounds deep in the playoffs, 2 years ago Reedy was 3-7.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think that that feels like it was 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. That was just 2 years ago.
Yep.
Frisco was 0-10 2 years ago, and now here they are. This could be the de facto district championship right here. I mean, but there's still a lot of football left to be played.
Yeah.
There's no telling what Lovejoy and what Denton can do down the stretch. And Braswell, they gave Frisco a game, but.
Yep.
I mean, and you mentioned, this was on the picket line. It was a blowout. We all picked Frisco, and
I can't believe we all picked Frisco. Honestly,
really?
I mean, I think that
what could give you a reason to pick Reedy in this game? I don't know if there was one.
It's one of those games that feels very close. I think we're all maybe correct in saying that Frisco is the favorite. I think Frisco is the favorite. It's just one of those that's hard to believe. Like, man, this is where we're at. That it's 5-0 for Frisco over Reedy. Not one person, picked that Frisco Reedy could win this football game.
It doesn't mean us picking 5-0 in favor of Frisco. It doesn't mean that we're thinking Frisco's going to beat them by 30.
Yeah, it just happened to line up that way. It's just one of those. It seems like every week there's a couple of those games where it's like, man, this feels like it shouldn't have been unanimous, but. Hey, like you said, I mean, Frisco's earned the right, I think, to be the favorite. I think it's a good matchup. I think it's close. I don't think, unless something crazy happens, Frisco goes out and beats them by 3 scores or anything crazy. But yeah.
What would you be the most shocked of in this game? To see Reedy blow them out?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because I think the expected outcome is a 1 or 2 score game in favor of Frisco. I think it would be surprising, but maybe not the level of like, oh my gosh, if Frisco beat them by 3 or 4 scores. It would be surprising, but not as surprising as the other way. Reedy's looked so ship without a sail so far. It's so just kind of meandering and lost that if they came out and beat Frisco by 28, then everybody'd be like, whoa. And
because if you look at Reedy's strength of schedule, they haven't blown anyone out yet. The teams they should have blown out, Plano West, Lake Dallas, they barely beat those teams. They were down to Plano West at the half. And then a team that they should have lost big to, they did. Well, maybe not even lost big to. They lost horribly to the Colony. So they've yet to have that marquee blowout win. And that could come later down the road against a Princeton and Lebanon Trail or Memorial, what have you. But it ain't coming this week. If it does, I will be shocked.
Should be an interesting one. As you mentioned, we were unanimous on the picket line, 5-0 in favor of the Raccoons. So if you guys want to print that out over at Reedy and Coach Cole, and
I'm going to be over there later. Don't put
that on the wall. Speaking of the Lions, you went out there to talk to them about the game coming up, interview a couple student athletes, and hang out and see where their heads at heading into this matchup. So we'll be right back after word from the sponsor. Your interview over at Reedy, and we will get to the other games of the week.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Star Local Media. 14 newspapers and websites with a print distribution of 270,000 homes and monthly page views of 600,000 online. Star Local Media, your community voice for news. And now, let's get back to the podcast.
All right, I'm here with the Will Harbour, Mr. Do-It-All. You play pretty much every position here at Reedy. You have been for a while. Will, thanks for hopping on the podcast. I know you were on there last year. Things are a little different this year, but we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But this week, that's what the focus is on. Y'all won our Game of the Week poll as y'all take on Frisco Friday night. And what's y'all's mood? Heading into y'all's biggest district game of the season so far against one of y'all's closest rivals.
I mean, every game's a big game, so treat it like any other game and just come in with some intensity to work hard. And
what have y'all seen, from Frisco this year? I mean, dating back to the summertime, they made state 7-on-7. They have some really good athletes. What areas would you say are they, improved on this year from when, where they were last year?
I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, they definitely do have some really good athletes over there. Really good receiver there, and they got some pretty good backs too, who leave some holes open for them. They can take it the distance. So
Now, y'all might be coming in here as underdogs. That's not very common for y'all, especially, seeing, what y'all did last year. And y'all have a winning record right now. But Frisco, they're rolling.
Mm-hmm.
So what's that mood like for the team as, maybe a lot of people aren't picking y'all to win?
I mean, it's all right. They've been absolutely destroying every team they've played so far, so they have that advantage on us. We've 3-1, pretty close games and 3 wins, so who knows?
Do you feel like since y'all have been in close games this year and gutted some out, or gutted all 3 of your wins out in close fashion, do you think that kind of gives y'all a little bit of an edge over, a team that maybe hasn't really been tested outside of their game against Melissa?
I mean, a little bit, but then at the same time, their full motors running. It's going full speed, and maybe the confidence maybe a little higher than ours, so who knows?
Now, so you've been a starter on this team, all 4 years now. You're here in your senior year. Talk about how you've seen this program grow from your freshman year, and now here you are in your 12th grade year.
It's a crazy difference. Just being led by all the guys last year, all the way up, and then this year having it change and where I have to do the leading and really just take control of everything and kind of grab everybody and pull them up with me.
Now, talk a little bit about that new senior leadership role, because last year y'all had plenty of senior leaders. Josh Foskey, Nolan Matthews, and that offensive line, and a bunch of guys on defense, Matthew Hoots, on and on and on. Talk about your expanded role, not just on the field, because we know you've done everything that your coaches have asked of you, but that role off of the field as well. What's that been like for you as a senior?
It's pretty nice. Hasn't changed a whole lot, but then at the same time, I didn't realize how hard it was to get everybody just determined and wanting and willing to work for you and do your job.
Welcome back, South Community High School Sports Podcast. Let's get into another week of interesting games. I don't know if any of them are quite as big as, obviously the votes reflected that. I think, Frisco Reedy is probably the best game, at least in the area.
Well, there was one game that was, within like a few hours of the voting.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to blow everyone out of the water, and I looked, and it was Lewisville-Flower Mound.
Yeah.
And it was at like 100 or almost 200 votes when I checked, the day of.
And Frisco came alive.
And I was like, man, they really want Lewisville and Flower Mound on this thing, which is a good game.
Yeah.
On paper should be very worthy of game of the week. And then that was obviously before Frisco and Reedy, I guess, pulled out their phones and started voting.
Well, we'll get to that one in a second. Let's start with Lovejoy at Denton Braswell. Lovejoy coming off a bye week. The Leopards 2-1. Really disappointing and weird loss. Colleyville Heritage to open things up, but then they beat a still winless Sulphur Springs team, and then took down Frisco Memorial, like they should have. So they're 2-1. They're 1-0 in district. Enjoyed the bye week coming into this matchup. Denton Braswell, on the other hand, some wins over Red Oak and Frisco Memorial, which
win over Red Oak.
The win over Red Oak is, Memorial is what it is, but the win over Red Oak, statement win, that was week 1 as well. Mm-hmm. And that had us all pretty hyped up about Braswell and what they might have.
And then they gave Frisco again down the stretch. Frisco had a comfortable lead, but then they didn't give up. They scored 2 touchdowns in like a minute or something, then they almost got the onside kick to really make it interesting.
That one ended up 33-28, I think, in favor of Frisco, so a really good game. And then they dropped another decision, 42-30, but, a really game Burleson team. Burleson's very good, and there's nothing wrong with that loss either. So 2-2 coming into the game, but, I think has really established itself, Braswell has, as a playoff contender in this district, within its first 5 years of even being a varsity program. They're a new program, but, this could kind of be the turning point year. You know what I mean? This could kind of be the year that they jump up and make the postseason. And man, this one on Friday, Lovejoy does have to travel to Denton. It's not a home field for Braswell. I think they play it at Denton Bronco Field. So it's not, it's
not even at C.H. Collins?
I don't think so. I think it's at Denton Bronco Field. So it's not like, when Lovejoy hosts teams, their field's right there on campus. So it's not a home game in that sense. But travel still does, play a role. Maybe a small one. It's not the longest trip in the world. But I expect a good one. You know, it's not necessarily, we'll get to the picket line in a second, it's not necessarily reflected in the picket line, you know, but I expect a good one. I expect an offensive game. You know, Grayson Thompson, I think, for Braswell has had a pretty good year. They've obviously, you know, you alluded to the Frisco game, they've come on strong in second halves when they've needed to. I think even against Memorial, they scored more points in the second half maybe than they did in the first half, just to kind of really extend that one and you know, make it look like it should, you know, when you play a program like that. So, you know, that offense is explosive. Head coach Todd Ford for Lovejoy, you know, that was the first thing he told me when we talked about the game earlier this week. You know, they're explosive. They want to go over the top of you. They want the big play. They're going to be up tempo, which is an interesting dynamic. You know, coming off a bye week for Lovejoy, you got to get back in the swing of things quickly. You know, I fully believe that Coach Ford and his staff will have them ready. They're not going to fall out of shape in a week. They're going to have them conditioned. They're going to have, you know, the conditions replicated as much as possible at practice with the scout team. But there's still something to be said for, okay, we're out of our routine for a week. You know, we're coming back, and now we have an up-tempo offense to try to deal with, an explosive offense that wants to beat you with the big play and can. You know, but at the same time, Lovejoy's got a pretty experienced defensive front, and that's, I think, really where if you see teams fall victim to up-tempo offenses, it almost always starts up front with the big guys huffing and puffing and not getting set and not being ready, and things kind of spiral from there. You know, I have confidence, like I said, that, you know, Coach Ford will have his guys ready, but you know, Ralph Rucker on the other side in the Lovejoy offense, granted, you know, not very good teams in their two wins. Sulphur Springs, I think, is down, especially from what they were a season ago when they didn't even get to play. Pretty disappointing last year. Like I said, still winless this year. But, you know, they took care of business. They engineered the game-winning drive when they needed to win that one by a score, and then obviously took care of business against Memorial. So, you know, I expect both offenses to have success. I expect it to be probably in the 30s or 40s. I don't expect it to be a blowout either way. I think it's probably going to be, especially with both of these teams kind of early propensity for scoring late. You know, Lovejoy especially against Sulphur Springs, and then Braswell. We talked about the Frisco game and some of their other outings. You know, this could be the type of game that's within a score in the fourth quarter and comes down to, you know, who has the ball last, who can get that big stop, you know, stuff like that. So, I don't know. Should be a good one. I was the lone. Yeah,
are you surprised that you're the only one to pick Lovejoy?
I'm not surprised, I don't think. I mean, a little bit maybe, because I think this game, you know, I took Lovejoy, or I would take them by 3, you know, if I had to put points on it. I think it's one of those games that's just really kind of a one-score game. Might come down to some weird stuff at the end of the game, you know, one stop, one score, that sort of thing. But, you know, I'm not super surprised. I think Braswell is a little more battle tested. I think they've shown really well against some better teams. You know, Lovejoy hasn't played at Burleson or Red Oak or Frisco or anything like that yet. And that's not their fault. I mean, you got to beat who's in front of you. But, you know, at the same time, I can see the logic behind Braswell's proved it a little more thus far.
And that's the main reason why I picked Braswell.
Yeah.
Just look at who they've beaten, who they've lost to, you know, what they did with, you know, against Frisco, you know, making it close. That's, you know, very telling. And I was drinking a little bit of the Kool-Aid, the Braswell Kool-Aid prior to the season anyways. You know, a lot of people were really high on them. There was a lot of buzz about them, and they've kind of proven that here in the early goings. And Lovejoy hasn't proved anything to me why I should pick them, you know, over a team like Braswell. And I think Braswell is a playoff team in this district.
Yeah, I think they both are. I mean, to be fair, I think they probably both are with... I mean, it could come down to, though, the loser of this game. If they also lose to Denison, then maybe you're in trouble. You know, I think that's kind of the scenario that it would take to eliminate one of these two teams. But I think they're both postseason caliber. So.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, they're top five teams in the district.
So we'll see. I mean, that was like you mentioned, 4-1 in favor of Braswell. Another game that was 4-1 that I'm even more surprised was 4-1 was the one that you alluded to earlier with Lewisville and Flower Mound. Kendrick Johnson, the only one of us to take Lewisville over Flower Mound.
I'm going to say now that's a bad pick. That's a bad take.
I mean, it's not impossible. I think maybe he's not here to defend himself. I think maybe the reasoning is that, you know, Lewisville's defense is only allowing 11 points per game. You know, they haven't seen a Flower Mound offense. They haven't.
Man, we're talking about strength of schedule. The teams they played is Grand Prairie, Arlington, Sam Houston, McKinney, Boyd.
Yeah.
Any of those teams scare you at all.
I think that McKinney-Boyd win looks a little worse, maybe, because Boyd is, everybody was so up on Boyd after that performance against Neiman Forest and how many points they put up. But
and look how
since then, Boyd has kind of fallen off. Only 14 points against East, really relying on the big play, and it hasn't really materialized. So yeah, grain of salt for that 11 points per game for the Lewisville defense. But it's on offense too. Taylor Green, former backup at Allen. Isaiah Stevens at receiver having a really strong year. I mean, that offense is improved as well, and that was one of the things. Lewisville last year I think was one of those teams where it's like your defense is going to keep you in the game, but you got to outscore them still. And it's, I think they've come around to that and put up some good results. But I don't know, man. Maybe Kendrick was put off by how bad Flower Mound got beat by Prosper.
But Prosper's just that good.
But Prosper's just that good. I mean, look what they've done to everybody. I don't think that's an indictment of Flower Mound. So
look what Prosper did to probably a 3 or 4 seed in 9-6 in McKinney last week. So I mean, I wouldn't look too much into that. I think that Prosper's just that good. And Flower Mound, dude, there's no way Flower Mound is gonna, drop 2 games in a row like that, especially the way they did. They have a fire lit under them for sure, especially with those those offensive superstars they have. Man, there's no way. There's no way.
Yeah, no way. I think I mean obviously I picked Flower Mound, you picked Flower Mound, so did Matt and Devin. Like I said, Kendrick the lone farmer this week, I guess. But yeah, it's just tough to see Lewisville going in there and upsetting Flower Mound. It's one of those things where, man, would the world be ending if that happened? I guess not. But, I think there's just too much talent. I think that offense is too good. Lewisville is going to get probably punched in the mouth pretty early with how good that offense is. And if they respond, then it'll be competitive. And I do expect it to be competitive. Lewisville's very good. I think Lewisville's a good football team and a postseason team in that district, no question. But yeah, 4 of us go with Flower Mound. I think that's probably how that one turns out. But we'll see. Let's save the Plano on Plano violence for last, and let's head to Mesquite for Mesquite versus Mesquite Horn. Another 4-1, I believe.
This is the one where I'm the oddball. Yep.
So make your case, I guess. We all took Kendrick, Devin, Matt, and I all took Mesquite. We're all believing in the Skeeters. Off to a great start, off to the first 4-0 start since 2012. Average margin of victory, almost 28 points. Not a lot to not like about Mesquite thus far. But, Horn, it's one of those teams that every year, at least over the last 2 years, we've been talking about, man, Horn's got to be better than their record just because they've been beat up by so many dominant teams.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was going to start with. I mean, Mesquite Horn, just like last year, everyone was freaking out. They're 0-4. What did they start? 0-5 or something like that, and then they went on to make the playoffs. They faced John Tyler this year, the Highland Park, Cedar Hill, and then Arlington.
Yeah,
dude, that is brutal.
Yeah.
The fact that they even won one of those games is, telling. They didn't get absolutely slaughtered by Highland Park, or absolutely slaughtered by Cedar Hill. Yeah, they lost by a few touchdowns, but they didn't get blown out. And then they kept it kind of close against Arlington, which is, probably the second best team in Arlington, a really, really good Arlington team. And then you look at Mesquite played. I'm just basing this. Obviously I don't cover Mesquite. I'm not Devin Hassan. I don't, see these teams on a regular basis and whatnot. But then you look at the teams they've played. Plano West, LD Bell, Grand Prairie. Grand Prairie's been losing like that bad to everyone. So it's, they haven't played the Cedar Hills, the Highland Parks, like Mesquite Horn has. And I think if Mesquite had played the same schedule, if you flip the schedules, I think Horn is 4-0, and I think Mesquite could potentially be 0-4.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of what I'm basing that off of. And when I think Horn, I think the kind of the class of Mesquite, district on the gridiron. So I would actually be shocked if Mesquite, won this game, and I'm shocked that I was the only one to pick Horn. But you have, I guess, some breaking news or
I think it's known. Gosh, I can't remember his name. But the running back for Mesquite Horn that was out last week, I'll see if I can find his name, is out again this week. I mean, and
that was against when they played Arlington.
Yeah, so I think
they still put up 35 against
Charles Crawford III. So he was out last week. He's going to miss again this week, which is obviously a blow to that Mesquite Horn offense. There is kind of the intangible rivalry factor, though. Mesquite got it last year on a field goal, 20-17. So maybe Horn has an extra chip on its shoulder to kind of avenge that and prove that, Mesquite, for all of its upward momentum and being undefeated and everything, like, still has a little ways to go to match them, or who knows. But
it's just one of those games where it's like, I've never seen these two teams play, because that's Mesquite. I never go out there, so it's just like,
Yeah, I think the genesis of our picks is, Mesquite's just been very explosive. Ladarius Turner and Dylan Hillard McGill at quarterback, both averaging more than 10 yards a carry. Offense looks really good. That LD Bell win, it's tough to place because LD Bell did beat Plano East, which just beat McKinney Boyd. So
but then
East isn't great.
Do we really think Boyd is that good?
Hasn't been great.
East is that good?
But at the same time, LD Bell, it was a total just dismantling. So that's probably the best one, quote unquote, best one in the season. So I don't know. This would be a signature win for Mesquite to come out and beat Horn 2 years in a row, especially if they can beat them handily and have it not really be in doubt at any point. I don't expect this game to be like a 4-score game, but if Mesquite can get up a couple scores early and kind of maintain that and beat them, by 14 or 10 or something like that, that would be a big win. So we'll see.
I really need Horn to win for this picket line for me.
Yeah, an opportunity for all of us to pick up a game on you for that one. Finally, let's round it out, like I said, with a little Plano on Plano violence. Plano Senior and Plano West at Clark, 7 p.m. I'll be out at that one. I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know what to make of Plano. I think I know what to make of West.
What is West?
They're learning. They're taking strides, and I think part of learning how to be, a competitive and relevant team again, you're still going to have growing pains, and that came last week against Jesuit. I mean, they seem to be trending upward, playing well. That Mesquite team, they were within a score at halftime, and almost even closer than that. Mesquite ran a kickback right before the end of the first half to go up, I think a score or so. So they put up some points. They've been competitive with Reedy, competitive with Mesquite for a half. Flower Mound got them, but, there's no shame in that. And then Jesuit, they just go out and lay an egg last week. The offense completely disappears. They get absolutely blown out. 1 field goal is all they can muster. So it's tough to know, like, is that first 3 weeks kind of where they're actually at, and they just laid an egg because they're young and still learning how to be competitive again and be in football games? Or are they back to, being kind of the punching bag of the district? I don't know. I think it's probably the former. I think that Coach Sokup has done a good job with them. I think that it's a lot easier to get a team up for a Plano ISD rivalry game, than it is to go to Jesuit. I mean, it's tough to lose 30 games in a row. He's made the point that, this team with this staff, is so new. They're 0-4. They're not 0-30. But it's still a burden on your program and still something that you think about. So I don't know.
It may not be translating to wins, but they're definitely a better team.
Yeah, and that's what it's tough to know, because I don't know what to make of Plano either. It's Plano looked so bad against Hebron, and then a little better against El Paso Eastwood in a very strange game. As far as just everything with the emotional, ceremony surrounding that game and all the circumstances. Probably didn't beat them by as much as maybe they should have, but there's a lot of outside factors that go into that game. And then Plano's offense seems like it's, come along behind Junior Oliver Towns. They put up 55 on Rowlett, and then you go play Allen. I mean, what are you going to do? That's Allen. So it's hard to know. Excuse me.
You got to be
the weatherman. I'm dying. I'm dying. Okay? No, I think I'm going to be okay. But it's hard to know where Plano's at too. I do think their offense is clearly more explosive than West. I think they have some talent. I think Talons is kind of coming into his own. Obviously, Cody Chris and Tylen Hines are a great duo in the backfield. So I don't know. I mean, you would think that Plano's going to go out and win by 3 or 4 scores, but at the same time, it's a rivalry. Like we mentioned, West has been more competitive. This could be the closest game in some time, between the two programs. I don't know.
If Plano wins this game by, a field goal or a touchdown, is that going to be more indicative of Plano being in a down year or Plano West being
probably a little bit of both? I don't know. That's why it's so hard to predict.
This game's going to tell a lot.
I think it's just like, I think it would reaffirm kind of both of those narratives. I think it would show that Plano West is continuing to take steps forward and show that, maybe Plano's not as good as even they've kind of shown so far, even though they've taken steps.
Not only does Plano have to win this game, they have to win convincingly.
I think so.
They usually, you say a win's a win, but, they need a statement win.
Yeah.
Because I don't think they've had that this year.
I don't know if they'll get it. We'll see. I mean, I guess it depends on where you want to draw the line. If Plano wins by 17, is that enough of a statement? If they win, where's the boundary? Because things get weird and late in games, especially if one team's up big. I mean, who knows? But I think it's got to pass the eye test, regardless of the score. Plano's got to be in control from opening kick to final blow, and that's kind of, I think, what you got to look for if you're a Plano fan, is that if you're going to even have a prayer of contending for a postseason spot, you got to be in control.
Yeah, and if you lose this, there's no playoff.
Oh my gosh,
it's out. It's done.
If we're here talking on next week's podcast about Plano West ending the streak by beating Plano, oh my God, I don't even want to know what that conversation would be like. What Plano ISD's fans, Plano Seniors fans would be going through and talking about. Twitter would be.
I'd love to see what Dick has to say about that.
Crazy. Well, I guess that's, the picket line is 5-0 in favor of Plano.
We can't pick West yet.
One team's lost 30 games in a row. You got to win one before I think anybody.
Even if they won a game, even if they beat Plano and they're on the picket line again later in the year, maybe against East, I'd consider it if they beat Plano. But even then, I'm like,
I think it would take West going out to Molina or Naaman Forest for some crazy weekend game that wasn't even scheduled for me to be be confident in picking them. I don't know. Probably still wouldn't. Like I said, 30 games is a lot.
I'd pick them over Molina.
It's a lot to overcome. But who knows? Like I said, it could be a close one. Should be a fun one, hopefully. I'll be out there Friday. I'll also be out Thursday for Rowlett in North Garland, I believe.
North Garland, man.
Yeah, could be interesting.
Garland.
Could be interesting. Where are you going to be at?
Thursday, I'm kind of double dipping into some cross market stuff. I'm going to see the Colony again as they take on Centennial. I haven't seen Centennial yet this year. That game will be Thursday at Memorial, and then Friday, obviously, I'll be at the game of the week, Reedy against Frisco.
Oh, you're going to that one?
Be at the Star. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
We're going to have somebody at that one.
Oh yeah. And that one will be at the Star. If you can't make it to any one of these games, or just want to keep up with updates, we'll be updating everything. My Twitter's at Bryan Murphy _.
Mine's just Taylor Raglin.
Nice.
You can find me. I guess that'll do it. Some interesting games this week. Some ones we didn't even get to that weren't even on the game of the week. Yeah. Longview and Rockwall. I mean, there's a lot of good action this week. That
one is juicy.
We'll see.
That one is juicy.
But we will be back next week to go over it all. Maybe be talking about Plano West competing with Plano. Ooh. Maybe talking about a Wolves win. I don't know. No, probably not. But we'll see. We'll be back next week with another edition. Obviously going over some takeaways from this week and all that good stuff. Until then, stay tuned. StarLocalMedia.com, on Twitter, rapid reactions, photos, all that good stuff. You can find it all from This Week in Texas High School Football. And we will talk to you guys next week.